Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show. Guest of the week coming to you from Sharjah television, and today we're going to discuss, as we know, we've been going through this for months now, this pandemic, the whole coronavirus, the whole COVID. So we find some people have gone, I guess you could say some extremes. Some people have gone on the whole conspiracy theory, it's all fake, unfortunately kind of attitude. And some have become very pessimistic, become like almost, they're just worried and they're kind of become depressed and kind of shut themselves away and acting like pretty much you could say it's the end of the world. So we're going to discuss that today, inshallah, with a guest who we had in the past, who looks a bit different because of such a thing to do with the COVID, and that's Brother Almir. Assalamu alaikum. So we're talking about the whole pandemic, but obviously, you look a lot different than we're used to you.
Corona time.
Exactly, but that's because you obviously are in the medical profession, and to wear the kind of equipment you have to wear, which literally neutralizes and completely is like air pressurized,
like a vacuum seal.
Exactly. You unfortunately in that sense, but for the bigger good, as they say, you had to.
Yes.
And that you can kind of compare that to the fact that we stopped praying in the masajid.
Yes.
Because of the lesser of the two evils, I guess you could say in this sense, is that the bigger prevention,
the sanctity human life,
exactly,
is more important than like praying a masjid, for example, or my
because
beard.
Of course, the prayer never stops.
No.
So someone might say like,
pray in jama'ah, congregation.
Of course, yeah, because people they jump on and say, oh, the billah.
No.
Nothing's, of course,
no.
Nothing's more important than the believing and the worship of Allah alone and prayer.
How about this one?
But
in the masjid, salah is 10 minutes. You can make your salah half an hour, right? So you can actually extend your ibadah longer. So it's not an issue. Issue being is congregation, gathering with people, spreading of the virus and so on. Anyway, just the beer's gone because of those things. I had to have a complete vacuum seal, and also that since we're exposed to all the aerosols, the droplets, the beard sometimes can't collect it. It could spread it around, shaking it, removing it and so on. And it's a delicate process, really, putting all of the equipment on, all the PPE, the personal protective equipment. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes just to put it on, because you have to put 3 pairs of gloves, all this. When you're removing it, it's another stage. You remove this, then you remove 1 pair of glove. Then you wipe the alcohol, rub, and so on. Anyway, not to tire you with those things, but what we're going to talk about is basically what is the source of this? What is the cause? What happens to people in this time of this pandemic, which is still ongoing? Lots of people are acting in funny ways. Lots of people are act, like you said, in pessimistic ways. Lots of people are acting in aggressive, argumentative type of ways. But I'd like to call this, all of this is grief. All of this is some form of grief. So what is actually grief? Grief in psychology is classified or known as a natural and emotional reaction to a loss of someone or something that's important to you. When we talk about grief, we always think of your father, your mother, your uncle that passed away. This is what we're talking about. But in reality, the loss in this sense can be a person, can be an object, and in our case, even a way of life.
I was going to say, losing the normality of life.
This is definitely grief. And I don't think many people realize this, that they are actually going through grief. And if they do realize they're going through grief, then lots of people have an idea, what are the stages of grief? How do you go through it? How do you fix yourself? How do you look forward to a life outside of this, or while in this pandemic? And people ask me, how long is this going to last? I'm like, listen, Corona is going to be with us for a while. But we have to live with it. We have to move on.
I think also, it's slightly off the topic, but it just comes to mind. Obviously many people get into this kind of grief situation. Then you have some people, they go the complete opposite, and it's almost like life has become a joke for them, where they'll sit 24 hours watching, I won't mention a particular brand, but sit there watching online TV series, movie platforms that you can watch on your television 24/7.
But this is also grief.
Yeah, I guess it is, yeah.
It is grief because they're dealing with it in a different way. They're trying to forget it. They're trying to, one of the part of the grief is denial.
I mean, I think to some extent,
is.
people who do those
I mean,
things.
I don't care who you are. Like, as a child, as a teenager, I came from a war-torn country. And I went through grief in a way, right? But you know what? You leave that country, that area where the war was, you go to another country, then it's like a normal life in a way, right? So you kind of get out of it. But nowadays, this pandemic affects everyone. Us here locally, any country in the world you go to, there's certain extent or everybody's affected. So this is a global thing. So we're in unprecedented charted or uncharted waters, like you say. And even like those people, like you said, gaming or watching, they're also in denial. They're also in part of a grief that we talk about. So going back to it, during a time of a loss, emotions can become intensely painful, affecting our life, all aspects of life, and our relationships. In the midst of this struggle, it is now what we need to realize is that to have grief is a normal thing. And we have to go through these stages. Myself, being healthcare professional, I've suffered grief in these times. We all did. But recognizing it, dealing with it, moving on with it, finding things to do in these times to make yourself busy so you don't have to think of all of the things that could be wrong or it's one of the things of dealing with it. We'll come to that inshallah. So grief shows us that we care deeply for whatever we lost. And this is normal. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a person. In this time of pandemic, of this corona pandemic, a lot of us lost loved ones. A lot of us know somebody who lost a loved one or know of somebody. A lot of us don't know anybody who lost somebody, right? But we lost jobs. Right? There was kids don't go to school. They're home. There's a lot of these things. All of those things. We cannot go to the mosque to pray. We cannot go to masjid to pray. So some people, grief might be felt in spikes throughout the day, or it could come up after a few days, or it could be a constant thing. So it appears in different ways. Some have compared this grief to be as if they are drowning due to tidal waves of emotion that affect them at times. Others feel like it's an extra weight on them and that they carry with them wherever they go. And nowadays you're locked down, you're actually pretty much at home and it's way bearing on you while you're at home. So everyone experiences the grief differently and on a different timeline or different lengths.
I remember reading as well that many people during this time have become depressed, and they've seen an increase in people buying depression medicines or people being prescribed depression medicines during this time.
Yeah, for sure. This is not something small, but I think knowledge about this grief is what we're trying to establish, that people need to be aware that, like I said earlier, like people think grief is you lose somebody. It doesn't have to. You lost your way of life. You lost your daily, now you're home sitting all day long and you used to go to work, you used to go to gym, you used to go play football, you used to do this, you used to do that, you used to visit friends. You have not seen your parents because you're trying to abide by social distancing rules, and protect your parents because they're older than you, stuff like that. These are all the things that have to do with grief. And let's go back to the Prophet ﷺ and mention his example. He experienced many losses in his life. And he was the Prophet of Allah, the best, the seal of all the Prophets. And he showed us that the grief is real and its response is natural. The Prophet ﷺ manifested his grief on different occasions and demonstrated the permissibility of showing our feelings. And this is the problem. Now, somebody is affected with grief, they're like, you have to be strong. You can't do this. And this is wrong also, right? The Prophet ﷺ visited Sa'd ibn Ubadah during his illness. He was accompanied by Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. May Allah be pleased with all of them. The Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he began to weep. When his companions saw this, their tears also started flowing. He said, do not hear, Allah does not punish for the shedding of tears or the grief of the heart, but punishes or bestows mercy for the utterness of this. And he pointed to his tongue, meaning that saying things that are wrong, unnecessary, vile, and so on. But if you shed a tear, this is a normal thing to do. Now consider some of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the losses that he endured. Think about this. The loss of both his wife Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib 1 year, called the year of sorrow. We know this. Prophet ﷺ had a year of sorrow. You could say year of grief, right? The death of 6 out of his 7 children during his lifetime. 6 out of 7. The deaths of numerous companions and friends. The deaths of numerous companions and friends. Watching his entire tribe go hungry as Banu Hashim was boycotted by Meccans due to the Prophet ﷺ refusing to spread the message of Islam. Losing his status and many relationships in Meccan society once he began to proclaim the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are major things that any of us could be affected with this. Maybe we don't do well with this situation. Yet the Prophet ﷺ went through all of this. So what are the losses that are people experiencing now? A grief response in this time of pandemic is completely normal. COVID-19 has been a sudden life altering experience for the entire globe. Not just one nation, one country, one person to another, one, you could say, profession. Everybody is being affected. In just a few months, the disease has gone from being a novel virus affecting a people in one city to the entire world. So now there's a feeling that the world has changed, and this is sense of a loss, because just feeling that the world's changed, and a lot of people, you hear them saying the world will never be the same, and so on. And this is what also qualifies as grief, because now we feel like that lifestyle we had is gone. Think about it like here. One of the first things locally said, the traditional nose-to-nose kiss. It was like, hold on a second, don't do that anymore. Shaking of hands is another one, don't do that. This is in a way something we lost. When is it going to come back? Allahu A'lam. But it's, when you are told, don't do nose-to-nose, traditional greeting, you're already remembering the times you had your wedding or whatever, you met some of your friends and everybody greeted you that way, and you're like, oh, those were good times, and you're remembering and that's also like a sense of loss. Not having that, you feel sad, right? It's normal, right? So, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. This is advice for us. Who then, when disaster strikes them, say, indeed, we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return. Those are the ones upon whom the blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is those who are the rightly guided. So Allah is advising us, you will face these things, be it at once, be it gradually, be it at any point in your life. You will face losses, be it in fruits or lives or wealth. But you have to be patient with it, go with it. But nowadays we have some of these tools that we can work with. And so, because the topic is very big and we don't have much time, so let's go through some of the losses that we've suffered in this pandemic time. Number one.
Before we go, I'm just going to say, time for a break. Join us, inshallah, after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now we're just about to start with point number 1 before the break came.
Let's talk about losses that we've all. Some of these losses happened to us personally, maybe all of them, but definitely we can put ourselves in this. Any of these losses can be known or familiar to us. One of them, number one, I would say, is loss of way of life, right? Freedom to go out without anxiety about getting sick, freedom to go out and socialize, the freedom to go to work, freedom to engage in public recreation activities, freedom to the whatever functioning we had before, that is gone. Right? We don't have that anymore. Suddenly, the most mundane, normal tasks can be anxiety provoking. Right? So this is total normal. We've lost all of that. Another one, loss of control. We've had basically we don't have things that we can control, meaning that I cannot control if I'm gonna get into the car and drive. Those are small things, but they affect us in big ways. You may feel even frozen and hesitant to make decisions, to take a step in any direction. This is that loss of control. Of course, number one, loss of life itself. Many people have died, and hardest of losses has been loss of somebody, a loved one, or life. And subhanAllah, there was an article, and I know this person, a brother, we play football with him. He lost his father on one Friday. And
this was
Tuesday.
this article a couple of days ago.
And Monday or Tuesday, 3 days after that, he lost his mother. But mashallah, may Allah grant him and his family success in this life and hereafter, and grant his parents paradise, and then make them shuhada. But he's taking it well, and this is a great loss. I mean, imagine that. I mean, I cannot imagine that. I mean, we always say we are ready for this, or if something happens like this. But this loss of life itself has been a great loss, or a grief-inducing type that happens to a lot of us. So everyone now, and I told one of the brothers, I remember playing football 3 months ago before this pandemic was going to hit, and they're like, yeah, young guys, young kids, they're like, Corona time, this is difficult, you might, we don't know about this, what is this, maybe it's overblown, this was the feeling a lot of people had, right? And I told them one thing, subhanAllah, and I said to him, brother, there'll be a time, when you will know about this, is when you will know somebody who has gotten sick from your family, died, or maybe not your family, somebody you know of, or somebody you know of like this, right? Then reality will sink in and strike and say, you know what? This stuff is real. And subhanAllah, he reminded me just last week, he's like, I remember you saying that 3 months ago to us in that soccer pitch, football pitch, and you said to us and to me, like, this is going to happen with this, unfortunately. And he's like, you were right. He's like, yeah, now I know somebody, and it's like, wow, this stuff is real. I'm like, subhanAllah, unfortunately, it doesn't have to be like that, but it is. So if we know of somebody who has died, somebody maybe close to us, or somebody we know of, right? Now, what is the other loss? Is that loss of social gathering. We are social people. We're social beings. What is one of the greatest punishment you can give to a person in a prison?
Seclude him, yeah.
To seclude him or her, put him in a solitary confinement. This is like if you could put a person in solitary confinement, give all the food, give everything, still.
I think what's one good thing is that there's a flip side to everything. There's the negatives and there's the positives. One of the good things about social media, or the technology, I could say, with all the bad things people do with it, is the fact that in this pandemic, it's been a way, without mentioning names, all these new video chat programs and platforms that we didn't know about before have become so good. I mean, I know a bunch of guys where we used to get together from time to time at this guy's farm or this guy's house quite regularly, at least every month. Now, to replace that, we've been doing conference calls where you can put 15 of us and all chatting.
Yes.
To keep that kind of normality. And some of them I've noticed, maybe more than me, have been very desperate to do that.
Yes.
For me, I've maybe literally done it twice out of the 7 or 8 times they've put in our WhatsApp group, hey guys, we're getting together on this platform, come. And I'm like, oh man, I can't be bothered, because for me, maybe each person is different. I'm a social person too, but I have my family every day. I chat with people on WhatsApp. For me, it's been enough. I haven't felt the need to. I definitely have to. But a couple of times I just thought, it'd be nice to see the guys. They keep doing it and I keep seeing it and not joining or see it too late. Let me join. So this has also helped a lot of people.
I
remember even my mother in the UK, she hasn't been able to see she hasn't really been seeing her kids or her grandchildren. She hasn't been able to see my brothers and sisters and her grandchildren. But the fact that she's been able to, like, every week or every couple of weeks do these chats with them where she can see her children and her grandchildren has really kept her spirits up, you know? The fact that she can see family
for
through
sure.
these.
Yeah, that does help a lot. I mean, that physical social gatherings that we are fond of, or we are, participating before, those are kind of gone. So we have to find ways, for sure. But definitely it's loss of, for example, imagine weddings, graduations.
Yeah, my son has missed his graduation
Yeah.
from high school
Yeah.
because, it's like literally
Conferences.
they'd taken photos in advance that they do generally to get them ready, and they just made like a graduation video based upon photos that they took in January or something.
Conferences, lectures, durus.
But then again, this is the thing.
You can do that online.
But
yes.
then there's been some positive things. I mean,
Yeah,
for
for
example, even where I work, we're involved in giving Islamic lectures and lessons. We've noticed that whereas before we would always have our lessons in-house, where you may get a handful of people or a certain group of people, we realize now that it forced us to go online. So those lessons we would always give in a classroom with 10, 15, 30 students, we now get 400, 500 students. So there's also like always, to every, that they say there's a silver lining to the
Yes.
cloud, or to every negative there's a positive. So now it's made us realize, or many people realize, like, yes, when we do go back, inshallah, to normal life,
You'll appreciate it.
we
more.
we will have our normal classes, but we'll make sure that every class we do is also online. Because we notice now that whenever we do a class online, after 2 or 3 days of it being posted, we may get 2, 3, 4,000 people viewing that class, rather than just the 10 or 20 who are there in front of us. So there are some positive things that have been discovered through these situations. So that we always have to look at the positive
instead of negative only. Yes,
negative, that there's some positives that have come out from it. Some people have been able to rebuild their family life. Some people have been able to see that when they're 24/7 at home, morning to evening with their children, hang on a second, maybe my relationship with my children wasn't as good as it could have been, or maybe my children have picked up some bad habits I wasn't aware of, or maybe I've picked up some bad habits that my wife wasn't aware of, or whatever it may be. There's so many things I'm sure that people have discovered and been able to hopefully positively make changes. Unfortunately, maybe some people have some negative. I mean, I haven't personally experienced that, but we see people making joke that, these jokes that people are making, these memes, as they say, that going around like, oh my God, I'm 24/7 with my wife now. Who, what will kill us first, Corona or each other? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but generally speaking, we've been able to learn a lot of things that should be able to improve our lives and our family lives, and it's been an opportunity to rekindle relationships.
For sure. So we're social pickles. I mean, and then finding ways to counter that, definitely helps. What is the another loss that we as Muslims felt a lot is that spiritual connection. We lost, Kaaba has been closed, right? Umrah has been cancelled. Most likely, Hajj to be cancelled, rightfully so. Masajid are closed. Some started reopening in some countries, hopefully soon here as well, inshallah, but it's okay. We understand it. But it's been a loss. Lots of people complain. They say, but masjid was everything to me, which is a right complaint. It's like, this is my connection. This is what I used to do. This is my daily thing, every day. And, it is totally fine. And this is, of course, other Islamic rituals, such as aqiqas, for example, or even, subhanallah, janazas could not be attended properly. So those things, janazah is not something like a celebration, no. But janazah is a right, it's a community event that you attend, and you feel, you don't even feel obligation. You feel this is the right thing to do. You want to do it, yet you cannot attend it. Or there's limitation, especially those who have died from COVID-19, right? Subhanallah. So all of these things, and Ramadan just passed, no Taraweeh prayers, within an Eid prayer, all of these things we feel like a sense of a loss. And it's totally right to feel like that. And it's fine, right? So this is one of the other loss. What about other things? Of course, definitely economic security. Many jobs have been lost. Lots of people have been laid off. Lots of financial implications. People have to rethink their plans. Lots of people have to reinvent themselves, right? Maybe the field they're in, maybe no more jobs. They have to do something else. You know, this is a huge loss as well, right? How about this? It's important. People don't think of this. Loss of structure. We don't think of this, but schools are being closed, kids are home. That structure is gone, right? The kids go to school in the morning, they come back in the afternoon. There's certain structure in the house. The woman or wife, if she's staying home, if she's not working, for example, she has her ways to do things. Now the kids are home, she has to be helping them. She's actually teaching the kids more than the teacher online does. I mean, this is the common complaint from people here, right? Because it's not easy, right? And then the husband also not working. He's working from home. He's at home. The structure has been changed, right? So roles have been changed, right? Now, what about this? Loss of roles and identity. Yes. The loss of the parent may mean that no longer have the role of a daughter or son. So it's reversed in a way, a lot of times, right? So if you were, for example, somebody who's very active in the community, being unable to do tasks that enjoyed may leave you feeling a lack of purpose. You don't have things to do. What do I do now, right? Especially somebody, mashallah, we know some people, excellent community volunteers, doing all these things, and now you're like, brother, stay back. Sister, stand back. You cannot do this. This definitely is. So there are many losses, but these are some of the things we want to mention. Now, what are the stages of grief? First one, always is denial. And with denial comes shock. So denial and shock come together. When the entire world is changing around us and the life looks like we are walking through a movie script in a way, then reality, it feels like that, right? A lot of times, subhanAllah, I have a dream, believe it or not, I have a dream. In my dream, I see my life from last year. And I'm thinking like, oh wow, I'm back to normal. This was all a dream. What happened? This corona, it's all a dream. Like in a dream, I'm thinking corona to be a dream. SubhanAllah, look how human nature works. And then you wake up, you're like, oh shoot, this is reality. This is reality, it's okay. But it's coping mechanism, you are coping with it, right? So denial is one of the things. And experiencing a feeling of this denial in reality is confusing state of mind, really. But what happens if you're in constant denial? This is the problem. So we have to kind of move on. What is the other one that comes with it? Of course, sadness. You become sad, no? We're all sad in a way. After that, or it could be together, anxiety or fear, right? Definitely you're anxious, you feel on edge, you're needles, you have this fear, maybe justified fear, maybe not so justified. I'm not talking about the fear of Allah, or there's a special type. No, I'm talking about fear of losing a job, or fear of going out contracting a virus.
Just hold you on that point. It's time for a break. Join us inshallah after this break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Sorry, just before the break, we started to touch upon this whole aspect of fear, justified fear, unjustified fear.
Yes.
So going into extremes. Some people are literally going to.
We talk about stages of grief. We mentioned the denial and shock, and we mentioned the sadness, anxiety, or fear, right? And also emotional paralysis. What do I do now? How do I feel about this? Do I have empathy? Do I have sympathy? Where do I go from here? Then you judging yourself for feeling like that. Why am I feeling like this? Is this the right way? This is paralysis. It is a normal thing. What about next one? Guilt. You feel guilty. What if I've given the virus to somebody? What if I've done this properly? What if I did this? What if I did that? Should I have done something differently? You feel guilty about something. Meanwhile, there's nothing to be guilty of. You know what I'm saying? But it's a normal feeling that a human can have in this time. And then another one comes, you're angry. Maybe you're angry because of the lockdown. It's unjustified, right? Because the lockdown has been there for a reason. But yet you feel angry. Maybe that anger, you don't show it in a way, but you show it in a different way. Maybe you yell at your kids, for example. You become angry because of a certain thing at work or whatever, but you let it out on your kids. So all this can manifest in different ways. And of course, now, we've all, in a way, suffered traumatic grief, right? What's traumatic grief? Is an incident or an event. It's an incident or serious incident that causes a tremendous amount of stress and overwhelms a person's ability to cope. And we've all suffered this type of traumatic grief. So, while it's anticipated that everyone will be grieving as a result of COVID-19, there are individuals who will be more susceptible to traumatic grief. Who are they? Children who lose one or both their parents. We talked about their brother, for example. Medical professionals who lose their co-workers. It happened. It happened to us, right? Medical professionals who are pushed to work under inhumane work conditions out of necessity to cope with hospital demands. Because we have to, not us, but many people in the world, they have to try to save a life and so on. Families who lost their homes due to this economic insecurity, who lost their jobs, or their food to eat. This is all traumatic grief. So, of course, we mentioned, what does it mean to be in denial? Now, just to touch upon some of those topics. Some examples of denial in a current situation include calling the situation a hoax. This is denial. So now you're telling me that people who are spreading these things out there, they're actually grieving. I feel sorry for them because they're in denial. I mean, you're telling me, we both were on WhatsApp, me and you, and even though we haven't seen each other in months, right? But we've been texting each other and we've been talking about people who in the beginning of this pandemic calling it a hoax. Are they still calling it a hoax today? Some of them are, but most of them are not anymore because it's become a reality. So it was denial in a way. They were denying themselves reality. So that's one of the things in denial. Second, blatant disregard for social distancing or quarantine protocol. This is what happened in the beginning as well. When people are like, this corona, what's this corona? Corona morona, right? Whatever. Meanwhile, they see people dying, being sick. Actually, some people, they've witnessed one of their friends being really, really sick and they were young. Like really sick, they're like, oh no, this corona is real. Let me do that. See? So that was denial as well. For example, making jokes that administrations are overreacting and taking civil liberties for no reason. And this is utterly false because those decisions were made with shura, with group of people, experts in fields of economy, fields in healthcare, in science, in executive councils, and they've decided this is the best course of action, and rightfully so.
I think another thing we could also say is denial is the fact that now we know some things have been relaxed and we're being told, especially here in the UAE, that we are shifting responsibility over to you, the individuals.
Exactly.
So what could be denial as well is that people say, oh, I can go to the mall again, I can go to the restaurant, whoa, and then they just go back to living life completely normal, where the government is clearly saying social distance, wear the mask, wash your hands, always follow what you need to follow. But some people now may be in denial in the sense that they go completely back to normal, as if it's all back to normal again, and let's just shake hands again, let's touch noses, or whatever it may be, or let's hug each other, let's do a European, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
This is the problem as well. This is also a form of denial that the thing is still there, and you need to, just like the government took very responsible procedures to stop things and to limit things, you cannot go on forever like that. So now we have to be responsible.
Sure.
So if you're not being responsible, you're also in denial.
Another way of people denying things, for example, would be like, well, didn't we have this lockdown to get rid of completely of this virus? We have not got rid of it. But if you're in denial and such, because the government has been saying from the beginning, and the authorities have been saying, we need to flatten the curve. We need to slow the spread. This virus is going to be with us. So get real, brothers and sisters. This virus is with us. And it's going to be with us for some time until the vaccine comes or until, Inshallah. But we have to be aware that we have to ourselves be individually responsible. If we look at the countries in the world, without naming some of them, who've succeeded in doing this, they themselves being taken individual responsibility, self-awareness, feeling themselves responsible for, not spreading it. And they've taken all the precaution themselves. You don't see those people. In some of those countries, not even compulsory to wear a mask, yet everyone does, right? So they feel that like a social responsibility, which we have to feel as well. So denial is one of those things. Like I said, how do you move forward from denial? You will ask questions such as, will the corona have direct impact on me? What kind of effect will it have on my family? How much is the right amount of preparation? Am I overreacting or underreacting? So we have to be asking those questions in order to get out of that phase. What about anger? Anger comes after denial. Because we feel loss, we feel grief. So some of our anger in the current situation is, subhanAllah, this is wrong. But people will say, people are being completely irresponsible and deserve to get sick. This is being angry. I didn't deserve to lose my job. This is completely unfair and should be happening to me. Or inadvertently, this anger may extend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may ask yourself or find yourself asking, why would Allah allow this to happen? People might do this and this is wrong. My uncle can even have the janazah he deserves. How is this right? This is being angry with this. So now, how does it help in this stage? You have to realize that you are not the only one who's in this situation. So recognizing that you're not by yourself in all this, it's happening to a lot of people. So when we go to abnormal events, we think abnormally as well. So we need to kind of reset, soft reset in a way, in order for us to recognize these things. Remember that do feelings move through us, and it's okay to feel angry. But what do you do with the anger? How do you channel it? How do you say channel the anger? Or how do you subside it? And you have to move on from this anger, right? So how you can do this? How can you overcome it? Saying aloud how you're feeling to yourself, to someone, or, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, complaining to Him. Secondly, seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third, grounding. What does it mean? When your mind is on overdrive, grounding brings your focus to what is happening at that moment, meaning that focus on the daily task, on one thing at a time. La ibadah. What's the best ibadah? Ibadah at that particular time is the best. Ramadan fasting. Salat al-Fajr, Fajr is the best. Not to read 3 juz, 5 juz Quran and not pray Fajr. No, Fajr, so on. So same thing, daily routine life, focus on the moment. Make wudu, for example, is one of the things. If anyone of you is angry while he's standing, the Prophet ﷺ said, let him sit down so his anger will leave him, otherwise let him lie down. This is the one ways to deal. Pause and breathe. How does this happen from the prophetic sunnah? The Prophet ﷺ said, when one of you is angry, he should remain silent. What do you do when you're silent? Right? You're breathing, and this is what you hear all the time. Take a breath, relax.
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath, So subhanAllah. So, and we go on. I don't think we have much time. We just try to skip through it. What is stage 3 after denial and anger? It's bargaining. What does that mean? A lot of people interpret COVID-19 as a personal punishment from Allah, right? For their shortcomings. So, some of the statements, if only this happened, if I did this, if I did that, if. So you're bargaining, right? So, if I had done such and such, but Prophet ﷺ told us, don't say, if I did such and such, right? Rather say, qadr Allah ma shafa'a, right? If Allah decreed for it to happen, it happened, and so on. Example of the bargaining in this stage, what does it look like? If we only had been more cautious, if we wouldn't have gotten the virus. This is bargaining. If I only had prayed more, this wouldn't have happened, right? If we only had gone to the hospital sooner, he would still be alive. So this is bargaining. So this is an attempt to regain that control that we lost, that loss of control. So how you can deal with the bargaining? Control your thoughts to reframing. Meaning that, so you kind of stage it, relax, think about what you're saying, right? Control your goals, set them. Rein in regrets, because what happened, happened. You cannot change it. and this is not your responsibility. Hindsight is always 20/20, right? So we can look at back every circumstance in our lives and consider multiple alternatives that happened, but it did not. So we don't say, oh, wish it could have been that way. What if I did this? What if I did? No, just let it go. Focus on what's in front of you. So this is the third. Another one, that after all of this, depression. People can go through depression. So once our attention shifts away from the past and into the present, now we've forgotten what's happening in the present, and we see in front of us situation is still not that great, we can get into depression. Some depression can hit really hard, and then you can feel the sense of a loss. Really, you feel it, and you feel sad, lonely, and empty. So this can feel to be stretched out, to be a long type of thing, but we need to recognize that this is normal to feel kind of depressed. So example of some of these thoughts and depression: the situation is never going to end. Second, what is the point of getting up every day if my mom is no longer here? I can't imagine living my life without a job. It's hopeless. Or I never even got to say a real goodbye because I couldn't have been with him when he died, and so on. So how do you deal with this? And we're just running out of time. Remind yourself that feeling sad is normal, appropriate and healthy when grieving. Focus on small steps in each moment. Instead of focusing on the stretch of days, focus on what you're going to get through the day, right? Visualize the promise of Allah. What is Allah promising us for Yawm al-Qiyamah and paradise and so on? Make dua for the reunion of the loved ones. And last stage, we kind of finish through that, is that acceptance. We accept what has happened, and then we find meaning.
Again, we could probably keep on going, but the time has come. All good things come to an end. Join us, inshallah, same time, same place, by the permission of Allah, next week. As always, I leave you with the greetings of Islam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.